There we go. All right. So this is the July 13 regular meeting of the Groton Planning and Zoning Commission. Chair is Jeff Pritchard. Staff is Diane Glenboski, Bruce Lofgren, and Deb Jones. We have one public hearing tonight. I just want to note for the attendees that the Rogers Development public hearing will be continued to August 10. So you will have the opportunity to address the commission on the items that are in public hearing as well as on public communications. You'll need to raise your virtual hand to do that. On an Apple device, it's at the top of the screen. A PC, it's at the bottom. If you're on the phone, it is *9.
Okay. So I'll call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. First item is roll call. Looks like we have everyone present except for Steve Hudacek.
No, I'm here.
And we have our new alternate here tonight, Paul Azapari. So.
Jeff,
Oh, you are, Steve?
Yeah.
You snuck in. You weren't there when we looked the last time. So everyone is present tonight. So we'll... All right, so we'll, first item of business is, first item on the agenda is public hearings. We have REGA 2101, zoning text amendments, clarification, updates. Hal, would you read the notice for the public hearing?
Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the following public hearing will be held on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m. virtually via Zoom platform to hear the following. Zoning Regulation Amendment, REGA 21-01. Zoning regulations text amendments to various sections to 1. Add new definitions to section 2.1. 2. Clarify/modify section 3.3-2 for height, density, and public space in the MDD and public space in the MVC and MTC. 3. Add several new uses with conditions in various zones. Parens sections 4.1, 5.1-3, 5.1-5, 5.1-13 and parens. 4. Clarify/modify section 4.2 for measurement for height in various zones and height in the special flood hazard area. 5. Remove fuel dispensing stations from the WRPD and other uses, parens section 6.4 and parens. 6. Revise residential parking standards, parens section 8.2-4 and parens. 7. Add new standards for EV parking, section 8.2-4 and parens. 8. Add new standard for grading and retaining walls, parens section 8.7 and parens. And 9, clarification/edits to table of contents, sections 2.1, 3.1 through 3.5, 4.2-2, 5.1-1, 5.1-2, 5.1-5, 5.1-6, 5.1-13, 5.1-14, 6.3-6, 6.3-11, 7.1-1, 9.1-7, 9.1-10, index and appendix, townwide application, parens Town of Groton, Office of Planning and Development, applicant and parens. A Zoom meeting link will be posted on the town's website meeting calendar, or can be attended by visiting www.zoom.us, webinar ID 848-6009-1478, password 576376, or by phone 1301-715-8592. Access to electronic equipment in the town hall annex for the purpose of attending / participating in the meeting shall be provided to any member of the public who provides a written request to the Office of Planning and Development not less than 24 hours prior to the meeting. Applications are on file and available for public
Okay.
inspection during normal business hours. Hours of Planning Department, 134 Groton Long Point Road, Groton, Connecticut 06340, and at the office of the Groton Town Clerk, 45 Fort Hill Road, Groton, Connecticut. proposed draft zoning regulations can also be viewed at https://www.grotonct.gov/departments/pending apps.php. All persons having interest in the application are invited to attend, comment, and provide testimony and evidence. Dated this second day of July 2021 at Groton, Connecticut.
All right, so how I want to conduct a review of this item is we'll have the applicant, which is the town staff, make a presentation, open it up to any input from the public, and then to the commission. And when it gets to the commission review it, each one of these items, item by item, is not as identified in the notice, rather than doing the whole thing at once. So I'll turn it over to town staff. Diane?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. This is the public hearing for the zone amendment text for clarifications and updates. Just a little bit of history. Back in 2019, the zoning commission approved a comprehensive update of the entire zoning regulations. That was basically a 2-year process, maybe even a longer, with a lot of workshops with the public and with the commission. Those regulations became effective October 1st, 2019. After that, there were a couple of other zone reg amendments. One was for the Mdd District, which was something that we knew we weren't going to get approval through the first process. So we actually took it up about a year later, or actually 6 months later. We also did a number of minor edits during that process for different other sections of the regulations. Throughout the whole process of these regulations, we knew that working with the new document over a year or two, we would see some inconsistencies and things that have to change and modify. So what you're seeing now is a group of text amendments, basically from what's happened over the past 2 years and actually reviewing this document and using this document with applications. And so we do have all the required legal notices and referrals to the various state and local agencies, the towns and commissions have been done, and they have been done in a timely manner. Staff did receive comments back from basically only the Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments, stating that the proposed changes will not have a negative intermunicipal impact. And we received that. We didn't really receive any other comments from any other state or local agencies or adjacent towns. We did receive 4 comment letters from the public, and they are part of your agenda packet. 3 of those letters address the public space in the MTC, and 1 of the letters addressed changes to the proposed sightline section. Staff will provide comments on these letters at the appropriate time in this presentation. So many of the changes involve minor clarifications, edits, and no substantial changes in content to the various sections of the regulations. As listed in the legal ad, the more substantial changes included some new definitions for section 2.1, some clarification to the height, density, and public space in the MDD and public space in the MBC and MTC, several new uses with conditions in various zones, and clarification, modification to section 4.2 for the measurement of height in various zones, and also in the special flood hazard area. We are also proposing removal of fuel dispensing stations from the WRPD and adding a few other uses to the WRPD. We're also asking to revise the residential parking standards, to add new standards for EV parking and some new standards for grading and retaining walls. So you have received basically two documents, a list of draft changes, which outlines each change by item number and section number. And it also includes staff comments related to these changes, and those comments are in blue on the list of draft changes. The next text is the zoning regulation text change document, and it shows the changes to the existing regulations for each section. The item numbers, which are the blue circles in this document, correspond to the item numbers on the list of draft changes. We apologize for the state of the tables and diagrams. They're in very draft form. But once we get approval for this, if we do get approval, we'll have them professionally done. So they won't look like that in the final document. And we also, in your staff memo, there's a list of how the more substantial changes that we've noted meet the 2016 Plan of Conservation and Development recommendations. The comprehensive review, there was some major review of the different sections in relationship to the 2016 Plan of Conservation and Development. And we do have some list of how some of these new changes are also consistent with the 2016 Plan of Conservation and Development. So Jeff, do you want to go through each one?
Well, I thought we should listen to if we have any public input now. And then I'd like to go through what I did was each of the numbers that you have, you know, like item 1, item 2, item
Right,
3,
right.
and see if there are anybody on the commission has any questions or concerns
Okay,
with that. And then we can go into detail.
okay,
Rather
so,
than- I don't want to go into detail of each change.
okay. So do you want to ask if there's public comment at this
I
point?
like to do that right now is
Okay,
ask if there's any public input. Now, we did get one letter from an attorney
yes,
that was question the section, what was it, 4.2-2N.
Right.
sightlines. So when we may want to discuss that when we get to that point.
okay, yes.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the commission on this item? Do you see anybody, Deb?
Yes, we have a couple of folks.
Could you go
Let's see.
through?
I
Yeah.
will. Ronald Oshner. Ronald Oshner. Yes, there we go.
I think I unmuted.
Yep, we can hear you now.
Thank you. I'm Ron Oshner. I present Mr. Ken Nash of Walker Hill Road. I am also a resident of the town of Groton here at on Horizon Drive in Groton. I addressed section 4.2-2N, and I had some concerns with that from the standpoint of fairly precisely defining the area that makes up the clear area between two streets or lot lines. It's difficult because you're attempting to do two things. One is create an open space in a triangular area, and secondly, provide an upper limit within which signs could exist, as well as developing a appropriate sightline and distance and stopping distance. And I think that there may be an easier way to handle that particular issue. I think the primary problem with as written is that the only things that would extend down into the 7-foot plane, so to speak, would be essentially freestanding signs. And I think that there is available way of adjusting that and making it a somewhat more manageable project rather than imposing that 7-foot downward limit by the sightline regulation, that you should use section 8.3E, which is a section which defines areas that should remain clear and essentially sets up sign prohibitions. And I would suggest that maybe that could be done by amending section 8.4.3E, which directly states that nothing should be within essentially prohibiting the sightline in that triangular area, and recite that limitation, that 7-foot limitation there. And I think that would probably be easier and more usable by the developer in order to know what his limits are. The other suggestion I have is basically that the section at the end indicates that there should be either a compliance with the sightline limitation, or looking at the state or town regulations concerning sightline for highways. I think that instead of saying or, we should say and, because that requirement for state roadways, sightways, and stopping distances is mandatory as well. So I think that to make this regulation read properly, it should say and as opposed to or. And I think the rest of my concerns about the regulation would be addressed by those two primary areas. And so if you have any questions on it, I'd be glad to hand them now.
Okay.
If not, thank you for your attention.
All right. Thanks for your input. Yeah, we'll address those when we go through the individual sections.
Let's see. Todd Brady.
Can you hear me?
And
All right, thank you. Members of the commission,
Would you state your name and
yeah, my
address?
name is Todd Brady.
Mhm.
I live in Mystic, and I own a couple of properties on Water Street,
What's your address?
31 Water Street.
Okay.
I am very concerned about certain proposed amendments to the Town of Groton zoning regulations that appear to be rolling back not only the recently rewritten zoning regs, but even those that preceded them. I'm the owner of Factory Square, a mixed-use building at 12 Water Street. The current density from a residential standpoint at Factory Square is about 1,600 square feet. And that has been the density since the building was first converted to mixed use in 1978. With this density of less than 2,000 square feet, which as you know is a trigger point, as is 1,000, the proposed increase in required parking in the amendments for each apartment and the requirement that any new residential parking be located on site makes the addition of any residential units ineligible for the 50% reduction in required parking. You have to be at 2,000 square foot density to take advantage of that. This effectively forecloses the addition of any new residential units at Factory Square. Specifically, Assume for a moment that the current tenant, Margarita's, chose not to extend its lease of 8,500 square feet. If this occurred, our options as building owner would be severely limited. We could try to find another restaurant interested in operating a large facility located on 3 floors, or possibly seek to convert to office space. The first option is hardly a sure thing from a restaurant operation standpoint, and there is little current demand for office space in downtown. The most desirable option would be to convert that space to apartments, but this would be impossible under your proposed amendments. And what is most bedeviling is to compare the relative demands on parking for Margarita's versus a residential use of the same space. Margarita's current use requires a minimum of 73 spaces, or 37 spaces at 50%, or a maximum of 111 spaces, or 56 at 50%. Converting the Margarita's space to residential would yield about 12 studio or 1-bedroom apartments. And we have studied this just in preparation for the future, and require 12 parking spaces under your new proposed amendments to the zoning regs, a significant reduction in the overall parking needs at Factory Square. The only way I see for us to create additional apartments would require the purchase of an immediately abutting property. There are only 2. Merge that property into ours, demolish any building on that site, and turn it into a parking lot. Please understand that I, as a member of the Groton Historic District Commission, am fully aware that any such demolition of an historic structure is frowned upon, if not impossible. We've never encountered an issue providing parking to the few of our residents not accommodated by our existing parking lot because of our over 40-year lease of 111 spaces at the Mystic Museum of Art. The proposed amendment effectively removes our ability to redevelop or convert any current commercial use to residential at Factory Square. I also want to address the amendments concerning maximum building height. I previously addressed these proposed amendments at an earlier P&Z meeting some months ago. These amendments significantly affect another of my properties located at 17-31 Water Street, the Randall's Wharf condominiums and Mystic Downtown Marina. The proposed amendments restrict the maximum building height at this property more so than both the current regs and the regs that preceded them. In addition to changing the height from which a building is measured from the base flood elevation +1, as in the current regs, to the average existing grade, the amendment restricts the allowance for additional height to only existing buildings, whereas we have plans for a new construction building at 31 Water Street. A newly built structure can be no more than 35 feet with no allowance for increase on a newly constructed building from existing grade. The existing grade at 31 Water Street is plus or minus 5 feet. The first habitable floor in the flood zone must be at 12 feet. So one must subtract 7 feet from the 35-foot height, which would be the height of the area to get you above the flood level, leaving a net 28 feet of allowable building height. Except that design today almost assuredly mandates that interior floor heights be at least 9 feet. As the developer of the Randall's Wharf condominiums, I can personally attest to the numerous comments from potential buyers about their negative impression of the existing ceiling heights in that building that range from 8 to 8.5 feet. When you add to interior ceiling heights the height of the intervening superstructure between the floors, these amendments effectively limit any new build structure to 2 habitable floors. And by way of example, if I have 28 feet and I have 3 9-foot ceilings, I'm already at 27. I have no room for my superstructure. It doesn't work too much differently, but as I said, 8 feet is not considered anywhere near an optimum building height in today's building environment. I recognize that there were some who were concerned about the standard building at 3 Water Street, which is 4 floors above flood level. But the powerhouse condominiums are also 4 floors above flood level. The Central Block, Factory Square, and the immediately adjoining Randall's Wharf condominiums are 3 floors above flood level. We had no intention of building a 4-story building above flood level, but we felt for economic and other reasons, we had to build at least 3 floors. I understand what you are trying to do by proposing these amendments. I mean, I guess I sort of understand where you're coming from, but I implore you to seriously examine the net effect, both on the ability to add residential uses to an existing mixed-use building, Factory Square, and to build a 3-story building above flood level in an area where there is a significant presence of such structures. If I have incorrectly interpreted some of these amendments, I would welcome any enlightenment you might put forward. Thank you very much.
I do not see any other hands raised for this item.
Okay. So that's it for public input.
I don't see any other hands
All
raised.
right, okay. So then we'll move on to discussing the items. First item is the definitions. I don't know, does anyone on the commission have any concerns with definitions section?
Jeff, do you want me to put these up on the screen?
You could, if people have them, yeah, I don't mind doing
Yeah, let's put them up on the screen. We can just
Alright.
go through what definitions, just list them out
that. Yeah, I don't, okay.
before we have,
Get there. There we go.
okay, so the definitions, you scroll down, Deb. There were some minor changes to the alcohol beverage production definition. There was a new definition added for existing grade and finished grade. There were changes to the height definition for building or structure. And we went through that for a couple of workshops with how to measure height and various different designs of the building. There also was a change in the diagram for the height and building of structure diagram. We did add a definition for retaining walls height. We added a definition for medical, scientific, technical laboratory. We changed marine craft to marine/watercraft. And we added a definition for marine/watercraft construction, maintenance, repair, and storage. We did add a definition for mechanical penthouse. We added a definition for public space. And we changed or modified a little the definitions for fast food restaurant and standard restaurant. We also added a definition for retaining wall. So that was the changes to the definition section.
Does anyone on the commission have any concerns with these? Or questions? If not, we'll move on to the next item, clarify, modify section 3.3-2 for height, density, and public space in the MDD and public space in the MDC and MTC.
That is, okay, so this section 3.1 of the zoning regulations, we actually added pretty much almost every section in this document. What we did was we clarified the language for dimensional standards on all the pages so that the text was consistent with the definition section. We clarified the text for maximum height that includes building and structures. We changed maximum coverage to maximum building coverage. We changed lot size to lot area, and we noted the density calculations or lot area per dwelling unit. That's reviewed, that is also reviewed under section 4.2-3 for the various product types. That was just basically looking at the definitions and looking what was in all these pages and trying to make them consistent. So that was the residential district and the commercial district for the CNCR and WW. Those were the major changes. In the Mystic Downtown District, which is the MDD, right there, we modified all the items as I mentioned above. And we also modified the height and density requirements based on the discussion with the PCC. over a number of workshops. What we did was we kept the maximum building height at 35 feet, which was what it was before. Actually, in the previous zoning regulations, I think it was 25 feet for the maximum, allowing a height of up to 40 feet if you actually decrease the percent lot coverage on your site. So we kept it at 35 feet, but we allowed it to go up to 45 feet with the approval of a special permit and meeting basically the requirements of the special permit. And also there's 3 other requirements that have to be met to go up to that 45 feet. One was to keep the parking basically met on site without the use of the validation program or off-site program. And this was discussed in detail a number of times with the Planning and Zoning Commission. The second item was to add public space to the site. So if the applicant wanted to increase the height from 35 to 45 feet, he was going to propose, or somebody was going to propose some kind of public space where the public could go and sit, walk on their site or whatever, without having to pay anything or buy anything on the site. We did add a definition for public space also. And the third item was to make sure the building incorporated some architectural and roofing features that minimize the visual height of the building, such as the mansard roofs, decorative horizontal borders, trim, etc., so that you can minimize the effect of the height of the building. So those are the 3 items with a special permit to get you the 45-foot allowance on a site. And then that was for and then we also clarified in the MDD that if you wanted to go from 2,000 square feet per dwelling unit down to 1,000 feet per dwelling unit, you needed to provide 100% of the residential parking on site. And that was you actually approved that with the application for a zone text amendment for 3 Water Street. You basically approved them going from the 2,000 to the 1,000 square feet if all the parking for the residential was accommodated on site. And it was clear through their application that they meant to provide 100% of the residential parking on the site. So we wanted to just make that a clarified point in these new in this regulation. Previously in the MDD, the density was 4,000 square feet per dwelling unit. So you actually came down a lot with the first comprehensive change down to 2,000. And then when 3 Water Street presented their proposal, you came down to 1,000 square feet. But you requested that the parking be on site. So that's the MDD changes that are proposed. For the mixed-use town center and the mixed-use village center, basically all the same changes from the previous pages were brought over to these 2 districts. And we also changed the requirements for public space within these 2 documents. Previously, through the comprehensive review process, we had the public space requirements of up to 15% in the MTC and 10% in the MVC. And through reviewing a few projects, one of those is the bank in the downtown area, Chelsea Groton Bank. You did receive 3 letters to support the change down to 5% for public space. In the in the MTC and also the MVC. And we're also taking out areas of steep slopes and wetlands and water courses from that calculation. There are a few projects. One was the bank and the other one was the previous Center for Massage Therapy. They both have much larger lots. Chelsea Groton has a large area in the back of their bank that's think of the word a lot of
Parking.
rock.
Right, parking lot and extended ledge. That's right.
Ledge, that was the word. And the massage center has a large expanse of both ledge and wetlands on the property. So we figured that 5% and taking out those undevelopable areas were appropriate in this case. And then for the industrial districts and the green districts, basically they're the same changes that we did for the residential districts and the commercial districts, just making them consistent with the definitions and no other changes in those sections. So that's 3.1.
Can we address the public concerns with the building height, the MDD?
Well, I did basically go through it.
Putting
the building height, it's 35 feet. He's allowed to go up to 45
45 feet.
with a special permit if he meets those requirements. He
Mhm.
can also ask for a variance. For the factory square issue, he's an existing building and he falls under a section of residential or reuse. And so under that section, there's no density requirement as long as you're not expanding the building. And so as long as he can keep all the development standards he can meet all the development standards. I think what needs to be clarified in that section is if he can't park on site, all on site, he still can meet the parking requirements somehow with his lease or some other means, but that's not clarified right now in the zoning regulations. And we sort of can't clarify that text under these regulations because it's not advertised. That section isn't advertised as a change. So we've talked to Mr. Brady a number of times on this topic, and that's one of the things that we're going to look at on the list, because we know he has some areas of that site that potentially, and there might be other areas in buildings in downtown Mystic that they want to move from residential or restaurants to residential. It's probably going to be less of an impact. So we need to look at that and balance it as far as what is required for parking. If he's going from a restaurant where he requires 40 spaces to a residential use that requires only 12 spaces. So we understand that. We've spoken with him. We just can't do anything with this text amendment.
No, it would have to, yeah, it would have to be done later.
Right. But as far as the parking standards, we support what we're proposing now because it's looking at the entire town and not just downtown Mystic. It's looking at a large number of the multifamily residential projects that are coming into town.
Right.
So, and the Mystic area, they already give, if you're over 2,000 square feet per dwelling unit, they already allow the 50% reduction. It's only when you go below the 2,000, and this is not in existing buildings, this is in new buildings that you would require the 100% parking on site.
Right.
So I think there's options out there. And I think we need to clarify in the future just what he's concerned about with Factory Square and adaptive reuse of buildings going to residential.
That requires reuse anyway. So it's different.
Right.
Does anyone on the commission have any concerns with these changes?
I have something that, it came up in a,
Yes,
after we agreed that not having any remote parking, then we had the following meeting where someone had ostensibly remote parking in an adjacent lot. And the way to accomplish that, because we were afraid that once you had remote parking, the remote parking could change into something else, but it turns out there was a mechanism for having such remote parking be, have an easement to be permanently parking, which takes the concern away if is such a mechanism. So that's something we said we'd address later. And I think this might be one of the laters, that if that's true, then being able to provide remote parking as part of your parking solution within a certain distance, provided whatever easement mechanism there is this is the place to put it. You can't do it by just promising to do so. There's something that probably needs to be here so that that the remote property is encumbered for eternity to be parking, or would have to come before us if it stops being parking. And that would kind of take care of it for us.
So you're saying instead of a lease, do an easement, which
Yeah.
is more restrictive,
Yes,
Right. But that would be a future change.
right?
it's a future change, but before we adopt and say that this is okay, I want to get on the record that maybe it's not.
Well,
That was
Yeah.
the solution.
this
Right.
this isn't going to be the end of changes.
No.
No. Does anyone have any other input to this item? And we want to go on to the next grouping. What's
Oh,
this?
I'm sorry. There was.
Oh, you
one
had
other
another
thing.
item now?
There was, we were also talking about, as you say, we might not be able to change this, but we would go from, if you're 2,000 square feet, you have 50%. And if you have 1,000 square feet, it goes to 100%, which is a giant jump in the world of apartments. Is it not too difficult? It actually takes away some concerns if we have a number in between there too, such as if it's 1,500 square feet, make it 75%. It's an enormous change from one to the other. So and we just accidentally fell into it by someone proposing 1,000 square foot apartments. So I want to give some more thought to it.
Mhm.
Have a number in between.
Another future item.
Yep.
Right. Okay, next section is item 4, clarify and modify section 4.2. Let's see. Special floods hazard area height.
Let's see, so these were the permitted uses in the table.
And
What we did was we added agricultural events as a accessory use to basically an agricultural commercial project with conditions. And basically the conditions are similar to the conditions for temporary events that we have in section 5.1-3H.
Hang on, sorry.
There we go. There we go. So we allowed them in a number of zones and with conditions. And you can only do those a number of times a year, and there's all kinds of conditions on timing and everything. We did add, the next one was we added the laboratory medical science scientific technical to the use table, and it's permitted in the CR, IM, and IG, and allowed with conditions in the CN, MTC, and MVC. And also it's allowed in the WRPD if on sewer. So we talked a number of times about that. We just added conditions for outdoor storage in the IM and the IG district under the section 5.1-1-F. They're a little different conditions versus the rest of the town. They're a little less onerous for outdoor storage in the industrial districts, but we figured we needed a few conditions in there. And then for marine watercraft, we added the new definition or new use: marine watercraft construction, maintenance, repair, and storage. It's permitted in the WW, which is the working waterfront, and it's allowed in the IM and IG and the WRPD with conditions. So I think that's, yeah. All right. So that's section 4.1, the use tables.
Okay, now we want to go
Is
to,
there,
oh, is there any concerns with the use tables? Okay. We want to go on to section 4.2.
okay. These were the dimensional requirements. We clarified that the maximum was for a building and a structure on the site. And we did do some changes basically to the clarifications for the Mdd district. If we go to the next page, I think it's easier to clarify. Well, if we start on number 1, we did do that clarification where you can't use a common lot line agreement to actually get additional height. And we talked about that a number of times. You can't get a lot line agreement with the adjacent property and then use that to actually go closer to the property line, but also higher up with your building. And the same thing with in the CR and IM districts. You couldn't use the common lot line agreement. 3 and 4 were just some clarification editorials. 3, 4, and 5, no substantial change. And then number 6 was the Mdd district, and that's basically what we discussed previously. It's 35 feet, but you may increase to 45 feet with approval of a special permit and meeting the section of the regulations and the additional requirements that we just discussed. And then 8 is for the special flood hazard area. This was discussed again a number of times, and the commission decided that projects should only get 5 feet if they're raising existing structures out of the flood zone or above the base flood elevation. If it's a new building, then they should comply with the regulations, the height regulations of the underlying zone. And this will have to be looked at over the next few years or so, next 10 years, next 5, 10, 15 years, because right now we allow building within the flood zone. At some point, towns might start having to make some hard decisions on allowing buildings to be built in the flood zone, because there needs to be access to those buildings. And the town's responsible basically for access, road access. So that's a whole issue that will have to be discussed over the next few years or so for building in the flood zone. I don't think a lot of towns aren't ready to make that decision or talk about it to any degree at this point, but I think they will in the next few years or so. And then that number 9 was basically what we discussed about the 2,000 square feet or 1,000 square feet. And then the parking requirements on site if you're going down to the. And then 10 was just making sure people knew that if you have there's a difference between non-water dependent use setbacks and water dependent use along the Mystic River. So that's that section right there, that table. If
Right.
anybody has questions on just that
Good.
table, it's probably good to bring it out now.
Anyone on the commission have any concerns or questions on the changes in section 4.2? If not, then we'll move on to fuel dispensing stations and WRPD section.
We did have the section 4.2-2 for the height limitations, clarifications for
more.
that. So most of this was just rewording to make it easier to understand. There was some clarification on how to measure height if you have rooftop equipment. And there's also a diagram proposed for measuring height for rooftop equipment. But other than that, it's pretty much the same as what it was before. It's just trying to clarify the language and make it a little simpler than how it read before. So if anybody has questions with that.
I guess we don't hear any. We'll move on to
The next section is
section
the
5.
frontage and access section. That was clarified.
Mhm.
Oh, this was the diagram right there, right? And then there's the frontage and access section, section 4.2-2K. And that we went through and we clarified a little of the text to make sure you knew when you needed to use 20-foot width or 25-foot width. We did some clarifications to the required frontage and access diagram to make it clearer on what was the minimum lot width requirement and what was the difference between a 1 rear lot and 2 rear lots, and providing the minimum widths for access. And then we also did a diagram for common access drives, which when we were going through this situation with applicants, it was hard to explain until we drew out this diagram, and then it was easier for people to understand it. So hopefully this works again. We'll have all this put into professional design, so it'll be a lot clearer. And if everybody's okay with that, the next one is sightline, since we can talk a little bit about this. We did have Mr.
This
Osh-
is after, it was one that raised the
Right,
question.
Oshner. He gave us a lot of good information on clarifying this section and horizontal planes versus vertical planes. But when we thought about it a little, and it gave us some good information, the town Public Works Department right now is reviewing and revising their town and road and drainage standards. And since these sight lines are just based on roadways, they're not on driveways or anything right now, we think the best thing to do is actually take this out of the zoning regulations and make it part of the town road and drainage standards. There are a lot of complications once you get into the road and drainage standards and the state DOT design requirements that we don't think a zoning official or somebody that's interpreting these regulations has the ability to actually, unless it was just a real basic thing, here's 10 feet here and 10 feet here, and here's a triangle, and you can't put anything within that area. I don't think we want our zoning official interpreting the Department of Transportation regulation or the town road and drainage standards even. We can't take it out right now because that's not part of the application. So you can do two things. You can do a little more clarification for this. You can leave it as we've proposed. You can do a little clarification for this based on Mr. Oshner's proposal, or you can just leave it as it is in the existing regs. And that's one of the items we're going to come back next time and say, we want to just remove this section from the regulations. So I don't know what you feel about that or which way to go, but you have a few options here.
Does anyone on the commission want to discuss this at this time, or we'll wait till the end as to what we do with this?
I think you,
It seemed like a kind of an easy one was, I think you've got it marked up that way, was there's no problem with having both active, both in zoning and be also required elsewhere. But we only judge the one.
right.
So as long as it's and, as it was proposed, it's not unusual to have overlapping codes and requirements, and whichever is more stringent is the one you have to follow. So even if the Department of Transportation thinks something's okay, we're not, so long if you've got the, so long as you have to, you still must do the triangle that we're asking for, regardless of what the Department of Transportation says. So I think both are appropriate.
I would just have a concern if it says and that it's up to the zoning official to interpret if he's meeting the Department of Transportation requirements. I don't know.
Well, can't you put it in there that which must be met by, if it's a Department of Transportation, that's who they have to go to for approval of it. I mean, there's any number of other things that we're sending someone elsewhere to get approval for. And this would be one of them.
But it allows it, whichever is more restrictive. I don't think that's,
Yeah,
I mean,
It-
if we leave it the way it is, we have the triangle or a bigger area. The minimum would be the triangle.
right.
And if the road standards by either the state or the town are more than that, then those are the ones to be followed.
That's why I put or, because like, you
I
know,
don't agree that this isn't correctly worded. I think it's
Well,
very clear.
If you want to leave or, that's okay, then it must also say whichever is more restrictive.
It does that, doesn't it?
it says it at the bottom.
Visibility shall be
Oh, no,
maintained
there it is.
as
No.
per the sightline distances required by the town's road and drainage standards and the Connecticut Department of Transportation, whichever is more restrictive.
No, I'm sorry. That's
I
exactly right.
think, yeah,
That's fine.
So you want to leave that as it is right now, and just do the 10 right now?
that's what I leave it as it is.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do you want to clarify about the 7 foot? This was,
Well, the 7 foot makes sense. It's for trees.
right.
It allows trees, if you have a tree that is within the triangle and it's higher than 7 feet, you can accept that.
Right.
Isn't that what that means?
That is, or there's signs that are higher than 7 feet. You
Yeah.
know, there could be a sign.
You could put a sign in, you don't want, you want it free. To me, it was very clear.
So you want to leave it as proposed right here.
That's my feeling. I don't know how others feel, but
No, I agree. I think that makes sense.
I think it's,
leave as proposed.
Mhm.
Yep,
But and eventually we're going to take it out anyway, so.
right.
Maybe.
What's the timeline for redoing this stuff?
Oh, 3, 4, 5 years.
But-
I don't know. You'll have to ask Deb Jones.
Well, if it becomes a problem, we'll have to take care of it early.
Right, right.
If it isn't,
Okay, so you want to leave it in.
that's what my feeling is. I'd leave it.
At least it gives the zoning official, if, you know, a lot of times the state won't come and tell somebody they need to cut their bushes at a corner intersection. So at least it gives the zoning official that 10-foot area where he can say, yeah, you have to cut your bushes.
That's really all this is saying, really.
Right, basically.
And telling the town they can't put a no parking sign.
Or
up
you can't put a fence higher than whatever in that area, you know?
What it's for.
So because a lot of times the state's not going to come down and tell you unless somebody really complains for a long time. So that's probably the reason to leave it, maybe.
Mhm.
At least it gives the zoning official that 10-foot.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't hurt to have, doesn't
Right.
hurt to require it.
All right.
All right. So now
And then the next one was just outdoor storage yards. We talked about that. Screening for just asking for conditions in the IM and IG, although less screening in the IG. So. And the next one was filling and removing earth products. This was just a clarification. There's no change for the text, really. And the next one was adding agricultural events under temporary events. So they're allowed in certain zones for a minimum number of times per year. Let's see, that was just adding that new section, laboratory, medical science, and technical. And with a few conditions. And we talked about this a number of times. Just the clarification in light industrial for water dependent uses versus marine dependent uses. And then adding the conditions for marine, watercraft construction, maintenance, repair, and storage. And those are allowed in the IM and IG district. They're allowed by right in the WW district. And then those are just some editorial things for changes. The vehicle repair and vehicle washing. And then for the standards and non-residential use districts, that was just a text clarification, just rewording it a different way. So those are the 5.1, basically the use sections and the use conditions. Was everybody okay with those?
Mm-hmm.
I am.
Okay. So then we're on to what are we on to?
That's item 5.
Section 6.3 was dimensional standards, just adding Deerfield to the open space subdivision standards, because they were actually one of the original open space subdivisions, although they weren't called open space subdivision. They were called a manufacturing home subdivision. And then just clarifying the text where the map is found for the open space subdivision map. Then we go to the WRPD and the uses in the WRPD, and we went through this. We've actually removed fuel dispensing stations allowance in the WRPD, and we've added the marine water dependent use. Yep, go back one. The marine water dependent, marine craft construction, maintenance, repair, and storage use. We added that under similar conditions as marine watercraft equipment display and sales in the WRPD. They both have to be on sewer. And there's both issues, you know, how you deal with hazardous materials and stuff for those conditions. And then that's it for the WRPD. Does anybody have any comments with the WRPD?
I guess we don't. We can
I'm good.
move on. What's the next one? Resident
Okay,
Parking.
parking, 6.4, erosion and sediment number 37. That's just a text clarification. How when we inspect, then we come to the parking spaces. So previously, before the comprehensive update of the zoning regulations, an efficiency studio or one-bedroom apartment required 1.5 spaces. And then with the comprehensive update, the consultants changed it to 0.75 spaces for every efficiency studio or one-bedroom apartment. We, as you were reviewing the projects, a number of times you brought up that this is way too low for parking, that you're not even requiring one space for every, you know, unit, which I can see the issue if you're in a city, if you have a lot of public transportation, a lot of walkable area with a train station there. But we don't have that right now in our town. So I think going back to the one space for every unit, at least efficiency and one bedroom makes sense. And then the 1.5 spaces for every two bedroom. And it looks like 2 spaces for every 3 or more bedrooms.
Is
So
this in compliance with the new state?
yes,
Wow.
actually, it's a little lower than the new state. Deb, do you remember what the new state said? Is Deb there?
I don't off the top of my head. It does comply, but I don't remember what the standards were.
I think it was
don't
a
have it
little
with me.
higher requirement because I think we had said, oh, we're under that. So
Mhm.
it does comply. I guess some towns were saying you needed 3 parking spaces for every 1 bedroom unit or something like that in some of their regulations. So
Yeah, it might only, yeah.
and again, this is townwide. And again, the MDD, the Mystic area, they already get the 50% reduction. So they're already, even if it's at 1, they already can go down to 0.5 spaces per 1 bedroom unit. So what does everybody think about that?
Does anyone have concerns with the parking?
What are the thoughts of, it looks fine, but what are the thoughts of why there's the kind of fairly tight maximums? Where did that come from?
That's the state, that new legislation that they
Is
passed.
that what it is?
Well, this was before the legislation. I
This was
think it
before,
was just the way the consultants were looking at parking standards all around the country when they were doing this. And it was maximums because you're looking at impervious surface and things like that. So you're dealing with stormwater. We're dealing with large parking spaces for commercial sites that get used maybe once a year, all the parking gets used once a year. So I think that was why it was proposed this way. I mean, we can look at it in the future. I think we need to look at some of the other uses, such as outdoor recreation and things like that. There's a few of them here that need to be reviewed. So I think in the future, we'll be reviewing all these parking proposals, and maybe the maximum goes away. I don't know if it doesn't make that much sense.
Or some other limitation to it, or if it's over this much, then it must be pervious, or whatever the actual problem
Right.
is. Just
Right.
So actually, I look at the congregate living facility, and the minimum and the maximum is the same number
Yeah,
for each employee and 2 each unit dwelling, which means that if you have a party, you park someplace else.
right. I think the parking standards need a little work. But is everybody okay with just doing this proposed change to the residential at this point?
Yes,
Okay.
there are no objections, and
All right. Then the next one is the EV section. I don't know, Bruce, are you still here?
gotta wake them up.
He's here.
Yeah.
All right,
I've been listening.
all right.
Yeah, so this is Bruce Lofgren from the Office of Planning and Development Services. So this electric vehicle off-street parking requirement came at the request of Planning and Zoning Commission, I think last year. So this has been before you in draft form a couple times now. We've kind of gone over it, and we've incorporated some of your preliminary comments into it and revised it a few times. If you'd like, Mr. Chairman, I can just run through it, or just address if there's any questions, however you want to handle it.
Does anyone have any questions on this? Because we reviewed this fairly recently then. If no one has any questions, then we can move on, I guess.
And the last one was the grading, the retaining walls, grading issues. We did add the item that if you needed to have trees within that area between 2 retaining walls, the retaining walls had to be at least 10 feet apart. Otherwise, you could make them closer, but if you made them closer than 10 feet, then they acted as one wall as far as for height and everything. So we made that clarification. So there gives them options for design. There also gives them the option if you can't meet this and you want to design something that's closer and to the property line, then you can do a special permit. And then that gives you a lot more options for looking at it and looking at the impacts to the neighbors, to drainage, to things like that. And you can condition it a little more than you can condition just the site plan. So, again, the diagrams are a little rough at this point, but we'll get them right when we get them into the final text.
Are there any concerns with grading or retaining walls? All right, then the last item is just editorial items for table of contents, index, and appendices.
Right, that's correct.
Does anyone have any concerns with those?
No concerns.
So you can discuss any items, if you're okay with that you have all the information you need, you can close the public hearing and then open it up for consideration. Once you close the public hearing again, the only commissioners that can actually speak during deliberations are the ones that are seated,
Right,
which would be the 5
5 regular members.
regular members.
Right. Does anyone have any reason for leaving the public hearing open? because we can't introduce any new items. All right, so I'll make a motion then to close the public hearing for REGA 21-01 zoning text amendments. Is there a
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried unanimously. Okay, the next public hearing we have is on spec 373 Rogers Development, 1154 Pequonic Road. Al, do you want to read the notice for that? The legal notice?
Oh, okay. Let me find that one.
It's in your package, right?
Not the one that we were not doing?
Yes, but we should open it and then just continue it to say we've opened the thing
Okay.
on
I have
schedule.
notice for that in here?
It's in the package.
Okay. That's after the end of all this? I didn't even make it down that far.
It is.
Okay.
I thought you'd already read it.
No,
No, I've read the other one. I didn't read the one that we're not doing.
it's on page 81 of the package.
All right, here we go.
That's after all the zoning.
Right. And here we go. Okay, I'm sorry. Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the following public hearing will be held on July 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m. virtually via the Zoom platform to hear the following special permit number 373-1154 Quonic Road, PIN 1698064852202, MVC zone. Proposal is to convert the existing building from commercial use to a 5 unit multi-family residential use. Review is per sections 3.3-2E mixed use village center, MVC, and 5.1-8.h multi-unit dwellings, conversion of zoning regulations, Rogers Development applicant owner. A Zoom meeting link will be posted to the town's website meeting calendar or can be attended by visiting www.zoom.us, webinar ID 848-600-91478, password 576376, or by phone 1-301-715-8592. Access to electronic equipment at the town hall annex for the purposes of attending or participating in the meeting shall be provided to any member of the public who provides a written request to the Office of Planning and Development not less than 24 hours prior to the meeting. Applications are on file and available for public inspection during normal business hours at the Planning Department, 134 Groton Lone Point Road, Groton, Connecticut, dated this second day of July 2021 at Groton, Connecticut.
Okay. And we have received correspondence from the applicant requesting that the special permit application 373 scheduled for tonight be continued until the August 10th meeting. So to respect the applicant's request, I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to August 10th, 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
There you go.
Second to continue the public hearing. All those in, is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, and we'll vote on the continuation of the public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried unanimously. So our next item is consideration of public hearings. We have REGA 21-01 zoning text amendments, clarifications, updates townwide. Is there any does anyone on the commission have any concerns with what we've gone through tonight?
No.
or changes? If not, then I'll make a long motion. Then,
Jeff, before you
oh, yeah.
start, there's one correction in the first sentence. I had put as amended because I thought you might amend one of the sections of the reg to take out that section 4.2-2N, but you decided to leave it in as is, so you can remove as amended and on the first sentence. Because you didn't amend anything.
Oh, you can shake out the word as amended.
As amended and, yeah.
Okay. All right, the rest of it's okay still.
Yes.
I didn't read it that carefully, but okay, so make a motion to approve zoning regulation text amendment REGA 21-01 pursuant to the below findings and reasons for approval. 2, 1, add new definitions to section 2.1 semicolon. 2, clarify/modify section 3.3-2 for height density and public space in the MDD and public space in the MVC and MTC, semicolon. 3, add several new uses with conditions in various zones, parent sections 4.1, 5.1-3, 5.1-5, 5.1-13, end of parentheses, semicolon. 4, clarify/modify section 4.2 for measurement for height in various zones and height in the special flood hazard area, semicolon. 5, remove fuel dispensing stations from the WRPD and add other uses, parent section 6.4, end of parent, semicolon. 6, revise residential parking standards, parent section 8.2-4, end of parent, semicolon. 7, add new standard for EV parking, parent section 8.2-4, end of parent, semicolon. 8, add new standard for grading and retaining walls, parent section 8.7, end of parent, semicolon. And 9, clarification/edits to table of contents, sections 2.1, 3.1 through 3.5, 4.2-2, 5.1-1, 5.1-2, 5.1-5, 5.1-6, 5.1-13, 5.1-14, 6.3-6, 6.3-11, 7.1-1, 9.1-7, 9.1-10, index and appendix. 1, this zoning regulations text amendment is consistent with the town's 2016 Plan of Conservation and Development, parent POCD, and a parent with particular regards to goals, objectives, and recommendations for protection of water and other national resources, support of active agricultural and accessory uses, protection of coastal resources and water-dependent uses, promoting sustainable development patterns for special focus areas, evaluation of current zones and development standards to determine if uses, setbacks, and other requirements are appropriate, review of parking regulations to ensure appropriate standards are in place, and review of development regulations to provide standards for alternative energy generation facilities. 2, this amendment is consistent with the town's municipal coastal program in the CGS section 22A-90 through 22A-111, parent Coastal Management Act, and a parent with particular regard for protecting coastal resources, protecting water quality, and carefully managing coastal development. 3, this zoning regulation amendment is made in accordance with comprehensive plan for the town of Groton and provides for reasonable consideration of the environment and local sound in accordance with the provision of CGS 8-2. Do we have I'm going to stop for a second. Do we have a date for effective date?
We'd like to make the date August 15th,
All right,
2021.
okay. The effective date of this amendment shall be August 15th, 2021. Is there a second?
Second,
It's moved and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll vote on the motion to approve the zoning regulation text amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried unanimously. Okay, and obviously the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of previous meetings. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 22nd, 21. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, does anyone have any corrections? For the,
Just on the last page, I think it's just like a typo. The paragraph before Roman numeral 12:2 blight update, the sentence right above that says they agree, that meeting in person, I think it should be agreed. It's all in the past tense.
does anyone else have any corrections? I just had 2 on page 4 where there were the second, third, and fourth paragraphs. The first part is a continuation where it talks about 3 people are making statements. Could we add in who these people represent or who they are, such as their either applicants or representatives for the applicant or staff? Because right now they're just names that if you look 5 years from now, you won't know who they were, whether they were from the public or comments from the staff or applicant. Does anyone else have any corrections? If not, then we'll vote on the approval of the minutes of June 22nd as amended. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried unanimously. Next, we'll move on to public communications. Does anyone on the commission have any communications? Or does staff have any communications?
No,
I had one.
You do? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
This was in regard to the Chelsea Groton application. The owner of the Pizza Palace stopped me when I was in for lunch, and he wanted to know, his name is Jim. You have to forgive me, I don't know Jim's last name, though I've been going in there for 30 years. He wanted to, he seemed to think that the opening in the back of his store was going to be closed in this application. That was the impression that he had. And he just wanted to learn about that and to make sure that if it was going to be closed, that he wasn't going to be asked to put it somewhere else, because we did ask him to put it there.
What was going to be closed?
Behind the Pizza Palace, the opening that
Oh, the opening close.
There's a driveway connector there.
I understand.
That goes into the parking lot behind him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had asked for that, and I remember asking for it years ago. And so I don't know anything about, anything more than just that. He was concerned about that. He thinks it's a very convenient thing and enjoys it, but he just was asking about it, and that he wasn't, if it was closed, he didn't want to have to put it somewhere else on his dime.
Mhm.
The impression that I got, but he was asking about that. And then the other thing that I was just hoping to get a copy of our bylaws for the Planning Commission's bylaws. I know that we have them somewhere, and I don't know
Well,
where I
that
can
you could
find them.
do under
I would
the,
just like to read them.
that way you can do them under the report of the commission. I think.
Okay.
Can I just respond, Michael? If you're in,
Yeah.
if you're in the restaurant, again, give him my name. I'm the lead planner on that project. If he's got.
Okay. All right. That's fine. No, he's actually a real nice guy, and he's on the Planning Commission, I think, in Saybrook, or he's recently on it, so he's familiar with it. He just, I'll do that, and I will be in there, as I am frequently. Thank you.
All right.
I actually got some communication from developers of 3 Water Street, but I'll cover that at the end,
Okay.
commission report.
All right. Does staff have anything? Does anyone in the public wish to address the commission tonight?
Yep. Yeah, we have a couple of hands here.
All right.
All right, first one is Mary Ellen Furlong.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me all right?
And Jim Furlong.
You have a
Jim.
deep voice, Mary.
I have a question about the Mystic Education Center. There's been quite a bit of discussion recently about remediation costs and the cost of raising the place and disposing of the entails. Does the town have an estimate of the remediation cost? That's my first question. Second, do they have an estimate of raising all the buildings and disposing of the wreckage? I think those are relevant questions that need to be answered regarding the Mystic Education Center. That's all.
Mhm.
Thank you. Let's see, Roseanne Katowski.
Good evening. Roseanne Katowski, 24 Ann Avenue, RTM District 5. I'm going to scrap everything I was going to say tonight. And I have to compliment Diane on her detailed presentation tonight and her thorough knowledge of the zoning regulations. It's quite amazing. I've been in a land use department for 23 years. And so I appreciate her thorough knowledge, and I just wanted to compliment her. And that's all I got for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Beth Tillman.
Good evening. It took a minute to find that unmute. This is Beth Tillman, 925 River Road, Mystic. I would like just to clarify about my position with regard to the Mystic Oral School, and that is that RU 80 is the current zoning on the vast majority of the property, and it is my great hope that the commission will continue to make that requirement, as there are many uses that can be built out under that RU 80 designation, and it fits the plan of conservation and development and the zoning regulations that are extremely current and extremely valid. That's all I want to say, and thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to listen to your deliberations. They are quite edifying. Good evening.
Thank you. Becca Welch.
Hello. Unlike Roseanne, I didn't entirely scrap what I was going to say, but I did add a little something. Several times tonight, I have had absolutely no idea what on earth you're talking about, but staff and commission members have always had pertinent questions and comments to add, and I am just very impressed by your collective knowledge and attention to detail. Thank you for recognizing that RU 80 is the most appropriate zoning for the Mystic Oral School property. I look forward to learning about future proposals for the site, and I have faith that you will continue to work diligently to ensure that the property is developed in an appropriate manner. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I see for hands up.
Right. Okay, then the next item is a letter from our ex-planning commissioner Fitzgerald on access to coastal areas. That's in your package. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on taking any action on this or not. Does staff have any input for it or?
I mean, Mr. Fitzgerald is concerned about the new signage for the coastal access area. And I think he believes that when there are no signs, we have lost public access, and that is definitely not the case. The areas where we have easements to allow the public to access the coastline still stand, and it would take an act of the town council in order to abandon that, as well as input from this commission. So we have not lost any coastal access points.
These easements are recorded in land records?
That's correct.
So that,
That's correct.
so it would be very difficult to remove them.
I mean, there's a process, but yes, it
But it's not easy.
involve a lot of public input and action by the council. And
Right. It's not as simple as just taking signs away. All right.
Is there any danger of adverse possession?
No, not at all. These easements are recorded in land records.
We saw that, I guess there was a study, a sign per study. Is there any action on that?
Yes, those new signs, actually, the state Department of Energy and Environmental Protection provided us some funds to purchase some of the signs. So by the end of the summer, you may see some of those going up.
Wait, which signs? Not the ones that had every store.
No, not those, not those, no.
That's just the square coastal access signs. Okay.
And they're actually wrappings for pond pilings. So yeah, so they'll take the place of the sign and demarc where the trail is.
Okay. Well, they're also planning, because that study was pretty elaborate, that had like every other piling wrap. Are we doing that? I mean, that's just defacing things. I mean, once you're at the waterfront access, you don't need direction to the waterfront access. So I'm not sure what was going there.
It won't be every other piling, but we do have those wrappings in our possession now, thanks to the state.
Yeah, I suggest being conservative about using those.
When you have those waterfront easements, they can be used from either direction, correct? Like if I was in a kayak, I could pull up to it and go the other direction.
There's no limitation on which direction you have to walk in.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering, then,
absolutely.
is the signage then positioned just in a way that is for, land use or water use?
Oh,
It is mostly.
That's where the piling ones make sense.
Yeah, that's where the piling ones would make sense.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I'll
when
tell you,
know-
like, once a year, we try to take a kayak down the Mystic River, and it's always hard to find a place to pull out. You know, once you go in on the boat launch and then you go down, you pretty much have to find a place going the other way, getting off the water. And so that's a concern. And then the other concern I have is there any mechanism in place to prevent? I know across from the Daniel Packer Inn, they put an air conditioning unit in that went right across the easement, pretty much blocking it. And like how when someone does something like that, are we going to know that it's, I mean, it's not, it's where you're taking it away, but then it becomes a real, it's almost like a building official enforcement action or something. But once he approves a permit for something like that, then to go back, if he doesn't know that that's what it is, I don't know how you stop something like that.
It'll take coordination between our office and the building official's office. Absolutely. I'm not sure what the remedy is for that particular situation. I can talk to the building.
The thing is that I know that I have properties where there's easements, and if someone put something across it, then it would be a problem for me right away. But if I wasn't like watching it every day, it could be there a few months or a year, and then all of a sudden or they only go halfway across it or whatever. It's just seems like one of those things that could, it has happened where we've lost them, and I don't know if.
So we'll take a look at what the easement says, and if it's a violation of the site plan, we can certainly take action through our zoning official and code enforcement official.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I don't know what you do, but is there a way to create like a master list of these things so that whoever needs to look at them, they can reference it or something to that effect?
I have a binder. Yeah, I have a binder of them.
Yeah,
So,
that seems like a lot of business. If anyone who's coming in for a building permit, you have to check the box, but
right.
Maybe it's a little too onerous, but it's also, I think that's part of what Mr. Fitzgerald is issue is, part of his issue is this incremental loss of these places that we don't notice until it's too late. And then it's an air conditioning unit or it's something else more permanent that's been built on one of these places that makes it a legal challenge for the town to get it back. That's all. I share his concern. I don't, he's got a lot of energy and zeal to pursue this. It's difficult, and I appreciate it. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other thoughts on this? All right. Okay, then we'll move on to subdivisions. Sirignano subdivision, Route 1, Flanders Road, bond release.
So the Sirignano subdivision was approved in 2001. They had posted a public improvement bond in order to get all of their building permits, and that was reduced to 10% of the original amount in 2014. That 10% was meant to be held for 1 year to ensure that the public improvements remained functioning. In this case, it is an asphalt sidewalk. They have asked for that to be released, and I think in your packet you'll see that the Public Works Department has recommended release of that bond.
Does anyone have any concern with releasing the bond? If not, I'll make a motion to release the $5,170 public improvement bond for the Sirignano subdivision. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, then we'll vote on the motion to release the bond. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried unanimously. Next item, we have subdivision 10-02, Winding Hollow re-subdivision extension.
So this is a 4-lot subdivision on Winding Hollow Road. There is a new owner that I am going to allow to talk here. Is everyone familiar where this subdivision is?
Yes.
Again, Winding Hollow Road, it's in the vicinity of Spyglass Apartments and
Yes.
great. So Eric Toby is here. He is the new owner. He is anxious to finish this subdivision, and I can let him talk to you about what his plans are.
How you doing? My name's Eric Toby, and we're just looking to complete the project, do everything as what was originally approved. Right now we have everything in motion, everything on site, and we're ready to start building. We're under the impression that everything was already set for us as far as permits and stuff from the previous owner, but that ended up not being the case. So we went through the channels and everything we needed to do so we can move forward, and we're just looking to finish this project.
So they were granted a wetland permit at the last inland wetland meeting, so their wetland permitting is valid. As I noted in the addenda packet, a subdivision expires if they are beyond the timeline in which to complete the public improvements, and the Planning and Zoning Commission places the expiration on land records, and that has not happened, the expiration by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So you can grant the extension to the maximum amount of time that's listed in the motion.
Does anyone on the commission have any concerns with extending?
Daddy, I'm gonna make with you.
Come on, honey. Sorry about that.
Does the applicant, Chair, Kevin Fiftel, Chair, does the applicant have a date when he plans to finish this subdivision, complete it?
We're looking for, I would say 8 to 10 months will be completed.
Thank you, Eric.
Well,
Yep.
the extension request would go to 2024.
Right.
So it would well be within that limit. Does anyone else have any a question or concern? If not, I'll make a motion to extend the time period.
This was originally approved 2010?
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah, okay. No, that's it. I'm sorry.
no, that was the end date, wasn't it?
No, it was originally approved November
Oh,
2010.
no, it was approved 2010, right? Okay. Does anyone else have any question or concern? If not, I'll make a motion then to extend the time period in which to complete the public improvements for Winding Hollow re-subdivision to November 9, 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, then we'll vote on the motion to extend the Winding Hollow re-subdivision to November 9, 2024. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried unanimously. Next item is Bridgeview subdivision modification 0 Grove Avenue.
Right, so this is actually an application to modify a subdivision approval for the Bridgeview subdivision. I am going to promote Roger Watrous, who is the owner of the property. He is requested, the modification he's requesting is to allow all of the building permits to be issued prior to the completion of the public improvements. Public improvements here are sidewalk and some driveway aprons and trees, and Roger can tell you what his plans are here.
Hi, Roger Watrous. The improvements are to run sidewalks down Grove Avenue. And I have to rip out into Grove Avenue to get the sewer and water. So if I go ahead and do the improvements, then I'm gonna be tearing them back up to run in the sewer and water. And so I need to be able to get permits to be able to do that. And so it's kind of a catch-22.
Mhm.
As you see from his letter, he's indicated that there is a bond in place and he will not ask for any of the bond to be released until public improvements are completed, and not before the CO request for the fourth lot.
This is our normal, been our normal practice for this. It is the waiver to the subdivision regulations, which requires what, a 3/4 commission vote, I think it is. And we have a formal application for this. Does anyone on the commission have any concerns with this request? If not.
How
then
many
we'll-
houses are there?
There are 4
4 lots.
lots.
4 lots.
We've done this on others. These
Yeah,
own
yeah, no,
applications-
this happens occasionally.
Yeah, well, the way the regulation is set up for really subdivisions and
Yeah.
of a bigger size, where it addresses, I think, either a certain percentage or at least 2 lots are affected. If no one has any concerns, then I'll make a motion to approve a modification to the Ridgeview subdivision to allow issuance of 4 building permits prior to offering the public improvements to the town for acceptance. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. And I assume we don't have to put anything in there for the certificate of occupancy, do we, Deb?
No, I don't think so. We've got
Excellent.
his letter in the application
All right,
file.
okay. That would be the only concern. Does anyone have any concerns with the motion? If not, then we'll vote on the approval to allow issuance of the 4 building permits. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried unanimously. And then site plans. You have the SIT 21-08 Rogers Development, 1154 Pequonic Road.
This is the same application as the special permit that was continued earlier, so the applicants also requested that
This would be
at the next meeting in August.
meeting, right? Old business, we have none. New business, new applications. Do we have any new applications, Deb?
There's a couple listed on your agenda. We don't have any others. One is a regulation amendment, and one is the Cutler Elementary School sign on Fishtown Road.
Okay. Then we have Rega 2102 propane fuel text.
Right, those are the 2 new applications we have in.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Oh, those are.
Yeah, yeah.
I was reading it. And no referrals. Commission reports, reported chair. I did sign off my Mylars for 2 items. I was trying to think what they are now. And that was about it. I don't have anything else. Report of commission. Does anyone on the commission have anything to report?
I would report, but I already did.
You're gonna get a report.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Jumped the gun.
Can we get an updated list of commissioners? Deb?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and then if those, I just like to read the bylaws just to, because I know we have them somewhere, and I want to make sure that they're for the planning and zoning now as well. We
They
just
are.
adopted those into, okay.
They are.
Yeah,
They are.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything?
Jeff.
Yes,
Oh,
go ahead. Deb.
I wanted to bring your attention to this in the Mystic Times. Showed a
Mhm.
picture of the standard, which also, it's very obvious that the units on top are so visible.
Tombstones? Yes, I know, they're
But
horrible.
also what concerned me was the chairs and tables on top of the roof.
I raised that question with Deb. I don't know if she wants to address it or not.
Okay, well,
Because
that
that
was
was
my
supposed to be,
understanding that that was not going to be
it's
allowed.
prohibited, right?
That's right, that's right. I'll talk to the building official
Right.
about that. It's specifically, the plans say that there's not to be any chairs, tables, any kind of use of the roof,
Because that railing is not designed
right?
for that.
It certainly isn't designed to
No,
block the appearance of the units, that's for sure.
yeah, because I raised that up when I first saw that.
And the elevations, yeah, the elevations do show what is depicted there in terms of screening.
They show,
does
yeah,
show-
but
it-
do they show those units above the screen?
It does, yeah, they do,
Really?
yeah.
And when they were that high, I mean, I don't know how we missed it that badly. It's,
I don't either.
all I can think of is that we were thinking that from the ground you wouldn't see it, but you come down the hill on Route 1 and it's that picture you just showed. So it's horrendous.
It's
Right,
horrible.
and
With that goes
that's taken from like Chelsea Groton. It's not even, coming down the hill.
Well, from
On
coming
the
down
other
hill-
side.
From coming down the hill, you see exactly that looking across Chelsea Groton's lot. So it's right up there front. And that goes to my communication because through the through Nextdoor app, I ended up communicating with the developers of the property who are on record saying that they're appalled at what this thing looks like and they're scratching how to fix it. And so no, they hate it too. That was good news. They're apparently going to be coming. Yeah, so that was not what they were expecting. They're apparently already getting. I looked at it and said you can even see the fans spinning on the tops of the units. They're getting grates to cover those. And they were kind of looking for opinions on what do we do to further screen it. Could they maybe have a hedgerow up there? And I mentioned as my personal opinion, I thought that was fine, but they'd have to push that forward officially. So we might be seeing something in that regard.
My daughter in Philadelphia lives across from a church which is converted into condos. But they put the air conditioners on the outside on a balcony-like feature. And they were supposed to screen it. They ended up putting artificial grass and hung it in front of. Horrible.
Happily, I don't think that's this guy's style. He's looking for
No.
something much better. So hopefully we'll see something along those lines.
Thank you, Val.
Does anyone else have anything? Okay, report of staff.
I don't really have anything. I just want to put this on your radar. At some point, we're going to be talking to you about cannabis and whether or not you want to regulate it. We have a little bit of time, but maybe a meeting where we don't have a whole lot of items on, we can have a discussion about it.
We're talking about in our bylaws, right? Okay.
Required at meetings or prohibited at meetings? Oh.
You have to wait till we get to in-person meetings. Have samples. I don't know.
Jeez.
Diane or Bruce, did you guys have anything?
I have something, and I don't know if you want to hear this, but it deals with screening. And
That's right.
I'm sorry. Also, I had to let my cats in, so if they start coming towards my screen, I'm gonna have to like get off. But I mean, I'll still be here. I just won't have my video. Cutler Elementary School. We spent a lot of time on the screening there. I don't know if you've driven by recently. The screen isn't up yet, but the rooftop equipment is on the larger building. And they did do the video taking you around the site and showing that you weren't going to see the rooftop equipment. Well, you are going to see the rooftop equipment above the screen. So one of the condition that you did do was that anything that shows, they would paint the equipment basically the same as the color of the screen. So that's what they're proposing at this point. They've given us, you know, those screening colors and the paint colors and everything. There are some areas, the parking lot, most of it you can't see the screen, but it's more as you're driving along Fishtown Road. You'll definitely be able to see the screening. Just be careful in the future. I think our regulations now say if you are going to have rooftop equipment, we don't care what you're showing us, that screen has to go to the rooftop of that rooftop equipment. Because so many times, you know, again, they showed us what we thought was going to be screened, but in the end, things get a little higher, the views get different or whatever. So you might want to drive out there and see what's going on at this point. I haven't really looked at clearly, you know, that low level area coming into the building, because that was also supposed to be screened. So I haven't looked at that yet in detail.
Pipes went across.
Pardon? So.
I was just thinking out loud. Sorry.
Yeah, the ones that the pipes go across.
I know it's a city zoning planning issue, but do you know if the Thames River, so-called West Side School, since it's basically the same design, if what they have done about the screening?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if they even have screening requirements. I don't know.
Diane, did they go into what was proposed versus why we have these outcomes now?
No, they haven't told us that. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Historically, I've never seen a project where the air conditioning units got smaller.
Right.
They've always grown, or they always have a dimension, and then they put them up on 1 foot sleepers, and it's always happens. So I think it's valid that we always have something that says, I don't care what anything says, from any angle, you have to hide it or put it up as high as the unit. That's the only way to go.
That's the way to go and make sure it's screened, I think.
We've learned the hard way.
Yeah. So we'll see. Luckily, it's further back in the site, so we'll see.
But who's responsible for something like that if it were not? I mean, is it just the solution then is to simply paint it?
I think that's what the condition said that you guys agreed to. Because
I mean,
we
if
were
we were
going
presented with information that wasn't accurate.
right. So, I mean, you can call them back and ask them if you want. It's up to you, I guess, at this point.
I mean, it's just a little bit. I'd like to hold their feet to the fire, but I also understand that things happen. I guess maybe it's us being a little too, I mean, maybe it's us, we need to be, you know, more strict about it, I suppose.
Or you can ask for a justification on why it happened. I mean, what you saw was basically that it was going to be screened from the road.
Right.
Maybe we should, can we ask for it? Maybe we should get.
Okay.
I would, yeah, I would
think
like
it's
to see,
worthwhile for our knowledge.
I would like to see the video side by side, what you told us we were gonna have and what we got.
That's right.
Okay. All right.
Just, you know, and then just, you know, make them accountable. I mean, we're not building schools every other year, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But you know, this shouldn't happen.
Well, it's for any project. It's not just for schools.
And I'm gonna look at the Thames. I drive by the one here every day, and to tell you the truth, I don't know if anyone's looked at the west side, the Thames River School, but I can't get my eyes past the wooden fence they put in the front, which is horrendous, but that's what it is, I suppose.
That's their screening.
No, well, they've got a wooden guardrail there that they put up that is not straight, or, you know, the wood is already all warped and twisted and is made out of pressure treated wood. It just looks terrible. I can't get past that. So
Oh, I see.
Well, I think if we'll keep allowing these
I'll look at the top of the building when I go by in the morning.
builders to just disregard what we say, I mean, it's just going to get worse. If they can be scofflaws and we don't have any penalties, then it's on us.
Right.
Yeah, I think
So
if
you
we
wanna
direct Diane
just-
to bring them back, I think that's an
Well, we
appropriate.
need to have,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so bring them back
Mhm.
and ask, show what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
Well,
yeah, it
that's
seems
fine.
like so many times I feel like we are being told what we want to hear, or, you know, and so that's what we're told. And I just want to know what it's going to look like, and they should have the ability to show us that.
Right, and a proposed correction if possible.
Well, supposedly they did, but we
That's
gotta
what I want to hear,
understand why. it
proposed
didn't.
correction.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think they are going to meet the motion by,
Painting.
I mean, the motion rather than screening. So, but, an explanation as to why it's not as it was shown to you is certainly appropriate.
Mhm.
But the idea of painting was because we thought there would be minor excesses. We were given a presentation and maybe it's going to stick up a little above this. If it's a little above that, then maybe painting's okay, but I'm hearing that it's not.
Well, I don't know because the screen's not up yet. You see the board, so you see the outline of potentially the screen, I think. But they're definitely telling me it's going to be above the screen.
Okay, because the way if you're saying that the top supports are in there, but very often the roof screen material goes above the top support, so it might be higher.
It might be higher. So we'll see.
All right.
All right.
Staff have anything else?
That's all I have.
All right. And then we have our June ASP update as part of the package. If no one has anything else, then I'll make a motion for adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. That's not too bad, 9:08.
That's great.
Hmm?
So what's our schedule for being in person? Any idea?
Well, as of right now, there's no recording equipment in room 2. Because they have stripped it out in anticipation of putting in all the hybrid stuff. So frankly, as soon as we have the means to record the meetings, regardless of whether or not there's hybrid, we'll be back in person. But we'll keep you posted.
And our next meeting is August 10th.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
All
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank
Good night,
you.
all.
Thank you all.
Bye, Kat.